a knowledge graph expert, but I'm a clinician. So I love to listen to how you think about these things and how we can benefit on the other end of things as well. So today I'll be talking to you about a project that I've been involved in. I'm just a clinical advisor. The team that actually did most of the work couldn't make the conference, so I stepped in last minute. So pardon me. I will be sharing this mostly from a clinical point of view, and I hope that also helps because I would not be able to speak to all the technical things that you guys are more familiar with. So today we'll be sharing a use case, pharmacogenomics, and how we can use knowledge graphs in that area. So I'm a clinical pharmacogenomicist, and I've been implementing this for about a decade now, since 2013 at Mount Sinai. And so today I'll talk to you about what it is, what are some of the challenges that we are facing, and how this application can help, and what some of the future outlooks for this project looks like. So what is pharmacogenomics? According to the CDC, it's just how someone's gene or DNA influences the way they respond to medications. If you look at the National Library of Medicine, their definition is also here. It states that it's a field that combines pharmacology, which is the science of medications or drugs, and genomics, right? So that you can help to better develop medications, which I've heard a lot of talk about drug development today, as well as also influencing selection of medications for people so that you can avoid side effects or to prescribe the most efficacious therapies for these patients. So when it comes to pharmacogenomics, the main reason that we want to implement it in practice is to be able to stratify patients. Because when you give a group of patients with the same condition, the same medication, which is guideline indicated at the same dose, most of the time, there are individuals who will respond to that therapy, but they will also experience side effects. And there are those that may not even respond to that therapy, but they still experience some side effects. You see that with a lot of the cancer therapies. And then there are those individuals that the drug does nothing for them at all. It's sort of like a safe placebo. They don't get side effects, but no benefit. And lastly, there's the group that benefits from the drug, but with little to no side effects. And that is really the group that pharmacogenomics truly shines in. And so in practice, we really would love to know this particular group of patients ahead of time so that they are the only ones that we give these medications to. In addition to this patient stratification, you can also help with pharmacogenomics to improve medication efficacy and also decreasing adverse event, but also optimizing drug development, which I believe many of you in this room already know about. So recently, pharmacogenomics I believe that we are getting a lot more good news in literature than we did many, many years ago, right? So when I started in this field in 2012 is when I started training, but 2013, there was two papers that came out, one based in the US, the COAC trial, and then one based in Europe, the UPAC trial. The COAC trial had negative results, right? So this was a warfarin study. And if you know anything about warfarin, it's been used as the poster drug for pharmacogenomics for many, many years. But that study was not favorable for testing. However, the European version of the study was favorable. And the reason for that was that they found that in the European study, about 98% of the patients recruited were of European ancestry, whereas in the American study, there were about 25% of the participants who were of African ancestry. Hence, they never tested for the genetic variants that were more predominant in the non-European ancestry in both studies. So that's one of the main reasons why this particular trial was a multi-center study funded by CMS. It was going to be the big study that would, push testing out, and it was negative. So that was not good. However, I have good news today. There is this new study that just recently came out, and this is a 12 gene panel out of Europe, also part of the UPGX project. UPGX just stands for Ubiquitous Pharmacogenomics, and they have shown that it's beneficial to test patients and use their genetics to guide the selection of medications. And so this is really, really promising. But in pharmacogenomics, to be able to use this in practice really well, you need to look at more than just the genetics. Because when it comes to precision medicine or personalized medicine, is more than genetics. Many of you in the room know that already. But as a clinician, I know this to be true because there are some individuals who carry certain variants but do well on the drug still. And we wonder why, right? So there's more to the story than just genetics. It's not an end all be all. You have to look at many other factors. So there are lots of data sets that clinicians need to be aware of to better use this discipline in practice. And most clinicians are not well trained in this field. When it comes to pharmacogenomics, one of the challenges is this data complexity, right? So first, most doctors were never taught about genetics or pharmacogenetics in school. We recently are introducing this into the medical school curricula and the pharmacy colleges curricula. So this is not something that practicing clinicians know. That's one piece of it. So that's just the pharmacogenomic aspect. But if you think of all the other data set that needs to be incorporated, they don't know this. They need this information right at their fingertips when they're about to make a decision. So it needs to be something that you have just put in the back end for them so that they have these alerts. And I think Malik did a very good job preempting my talk today, so I don't have to talk so much about CDS, but this is what we are looking to create, clinical decision support. And so some of the challenges as I've listed here is a data challenge, it's a knowledge challenge, and a trust challenge. And all of these things are areas that we need to be able to address when we build applications. So we started with something called MyPGX, and this is a drug gene interaction checker that uses data pipelines from like clinical guidelines, also knowledge graphs, large language modules, as many of you have mentioned previously here. And then so this guidelines feeds into decision trees, and we'll show a few of those. And then finally, the clinical decision support application. It's a very, very simplified version of many of the things that you're talking about today, but this is something that we need in practice today, right? So it's not necessarily, it doesn't have to be very complex, but it's very straightforward knowledge that's readily available, and yet we are not using this in practice. So there needs to be something that we could do about this. So the thing that we try to do here is with these decision trees, there's a no-code builder that have been built on the back end for clinicians. So the clinicians who are interested could actually just build their own decision trees, and it feeds into this platform, and they can also get CDS without needing to know how to code. So basically, this is the CPIC guideline, is the Clinical Pharmacogenetics Implementation Consortium guidelines. So this is just to show that it goes into, we use the guidelines, build these decision trees, which are clinician vetted. So every tree that is built, either automatically from the guidelines through APIs or manually, because we have some fellows working on this project as well. And then finally, the subject matter expert vets it and publishes it, which then goes to the website. So we have a lot of these flows built already. This is just showing you all the various drugs that have been built on the back end with the flow builder. And then this is also the interaction checker. So it goes into, so using this is showing the CPIC guidelines going into this decision tree here. This example is specifically for a drug called clopidogrel, which is Plavix, is an antiplatelet agent, right? So in addition to just the straight pharmacogenomic interactions, we are building what we call the precision medicine decision trees. This is also incorporating the things that are listed on here: the drug gene interactions, contraindications of the medications, precautions and warnings, which special populations should not use the drug and which ones should use the drug, major drug-drug interactions. I say major because many of these drugs have a lot of drug-drug interactions, and most of them are not clinically useful, right? Hence, another reason why you need a subject matter expert on this to tease out some of these things. And also the pharmacogenomics indications where applicable. So with the precision medicine trees, they are also embedded into the flow. So there are different points or branches for these trees, asking specifically about the things on the previous slide and not just the genetics. So the clinician can build this, like I said, in the No Code Builder app, which is the Apollo app. They build that and then they can preview their questions that they've built on the right-hand side, go through it on the user end before they publish. And then once they publish, it's live on the CDS angle. So you can confirm the publishing. These are just screenshots to show that. And this is just the web piece of it. So this is what the end user clinician sees. This is a web application. They can ask it's a conversational AI assistant. So they can ask a question, they can select a drug. There you can switch to also a questionnaire version or just simply asking the questions. So in this case, it's asking, now that we know, so the clinician selected statins, for instance. So it tells you now that we know this, give us more details about the patient. The clinician can type in, my patient is a 37-year-old Caucasian, non-pregnant female, blah, blah, blah. All that information is ingested. And then it comes out with a recommendation for a statin. So it tells them if they are considering a statin that is low SAMS risk, which is just a risk for muscle pain, because statins are known to have that risk for this genetic condition, then these are the ones that are options. And then it explains how it got to that recommendation. So we give them the explanation here that because you told us your patient has been tested for SLCO1B1, which is the gene of interest here. You told us that the patient's phenotype was decreased function. You told us the intensity that you're looking for, which is low statin intensity. So then this is the recommendation, right? So it gives an explanation for all. And you can also export the explanation as a PDF for the clinicians. So for future directions, and I think I'm very good on time, for future directions here, we are looking that the precision medicine flows will query patients' information directly from the EHR. So if it's embedded, currently it's only a web application, but once we get it embedded in the EHR systems, we will be able to pull out the relevant information from the EHR for the patients and query it directly so that the clinicians will not have to type in information about the patient or have the follow-up prompts. Once they are prescribing medications, they will get these alerts. Also, we want the knowledge graphs to do the initial pulling of these decision trees so that we are not building them manually as we have been doing in the past few weeks, but we would like the knowledge graph to build it, and then the clinicians will verify, vet it, and then make the changes. So it's much easier. We will also try to link different drug-gene interaction flows for multiple drugs in the decision trees as well. And I saw the AbbVie decision tree earlier, knowledge graph earlier, and I think that's fabulous. I wish we could use something like that in practice today. And also be able to incorporate polypharmacy and polygenic risk scores, and being able to establish what we call a global community around this. We understand that this is not something that we can do with a small team. So we are opening this up to all experts around the world. Whoever wants to use this information, whoever wants to comment on the application, they can do so. It's freely accessible to clinicians and implementers around the world, especially outside of the US and in other areas that we collaborate mostly with in South America and Africa, where EHRs are not even a thing. They can still get access to this kind of decision support just on the web, and then also provide help. And lastly, we are looking to build an educational platform which is integrated into this application for both clinicians and patients, and be able to track medication adherence and also adverse event tracking as well, just to inform the whole process and hopefully build some research around it eventually. So I will end it here. I think I talked about this as well. There are future directions in the US and globally. And thank you so much for your time. And I would like to acknowledge the team. Like I said, I just decided to do this a few days ago. So I hope I did them a good service today for them. But thank you. Yes.
I'll shout loud.
Yes.
Yeah. So when you look at applications for this, right, obviously the idea of standards of care come into place. How do you see this type of thing engaging in conversations about refinements or changes to standards of care? Because we know from lots of experience that standards need to change, but the evidence to drive those changes in the standards have generally not been well received from the regulatory standpoint. So methotrexate, right, as a first line treatment for people we know if they carry that biomarker, nothing's going to work, but it's required 6 months of treatment. How do we use this in the regulatory conversation?
Yeah, the regulatory piece is really, it's a difficult conversation. I mean, something like this will be considered a medical device, right? And the FDA is not having it, especially for PGX applications. This is not the first of it. I mean, this is probably the first using like knowledge graph, but also you see translational software and other companies that the FDA has just shut down. But I think what happens, the way we can change the standard is really testing it out and writing about it, talking about it, getting more and more, institutions to be on board. I've seen that the reimbursement landscape is changing, which is really, really helpful. Just on April 1st in New York State, we have something called the biomarker testing legislation, which is going to allow for testing of some of these genetic markers. And just that alone is going to be a game changer for us, right? Because in the past, most patients cannot afford the test. Clinicians don't want to order the test because they don't understand it. Now, it's almost a requirement to make sure that you're ordering the right test on the right patients. So as we have more of this information in practice, it's a no-brainer. Clinicians are going to start to ask, how do I use this information? What tools do I have at my disposal, right? And I think those are some of the things that are going to move the needle forward. It may not just be just the regulatory piece. The regulatory piece will have to catch up to the things that are already happening. And I believe that's where it's going. Mm-hmm. Any other questions? Yes.
Thanks for the amazing talk. I really like the flowchart diagram tool that you presented. Like, I was wondering if that particular tool in the backend is using any kind of like HL7 standards, like CPG on fire or structured data capture to create
all of that. We're using the HL7 is what you said, and fire standard, SNOMED codes as well. So we're using all of that. Yeah.
Let's go one more last question.
Hi, great talk. Thank you. I have a question about the clinical decision trees that you talked about. I'm curious whether, to what degree is there kind of consensus about what is, is there like a true kind of decision tree, or do different clinicians have different perspectives on what that should be?
No, so currently the ones that we are building are strictly from the guidelines. Okay, perfect. They're strictly from the guidelines, so there's no, I guess decisions one way or the other. We are going straight by the guidelines, and even the incorporation of the precision medicine information, like country indications, drug interactions. Those are all coming from databases that are well vetted already. We don't have to make these things up. It's just that the information is readily available. Someone just needs to put it together and make it useful, and that's what we're doing.
Perfect. Let's give it up for a speaker and Ted. Come on, what a great presentation. Items. So we're going to be back here, let's say 1:25, so we can be ready for our next keynote with Suba from Pfizer. Lunch is right outside on both sides. There's different options. They're pretty good, yummy food. The number one question we get asked is, where can we eat? You can eat in the classroom, outside. Today is a beautiful day. I would encourage you to go outside, get some fresh air, enjoy the sun. And please, 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 I need Onto Force to not